hopefully you guys had a chance to read. This is what I'm going to be going over today, was what I have up here in the notepad. So we'll get back to that in a moment. But here, let me show you two different bar types that we're going to be licensing here shortly, as soon as Jeremy gets back. So Jeremy's been off this week. So the first bar type that we have here is the SI rank O, true. And I called it the true because it uses the true closing price and the true opening price of actual incoming tick. So there's no manufactured open, and the closing price is not manufactured either. So like down here, some of you guys are familiar with the uni Ranko, also fairly similar to the RJ bars, very popular bars. And as most of you guys probably realize, the closing price is not the true closing price, right? It's a manufactured closing price, which gives it this nice, smooth look when price begins to trend. But what also is manufactured, and that you may not know, is the closing price sometimes is manufactured. Not always, but sometimes the closing price can be manufactured because, depending on how the bar is set up, this bar is set up to have a 2-tick difference from one close to the next close. And of course, price doesn't always move in a perfect 2-tick fashion, especially on the oil. I kind of use the oil because the oil, its spread, the spread between the bid and the ask and the oil really kind of fluctuates, dramatically between pit trading hours, where the spread is tighter, versus after hours, when the spread widens quite a bit and the incoming tick or the last price can really jump around after hours, and even during market hours when some kind of crazy news hits and there's a lot of volatility. So let me see if I can, so here's a good example of like the closing or the opening price and how it's showing the true opening price, right? So you can see that these bars all have a different body length, right? So this bar is pretty short as compared to the next bar, and that's because it's showing the true opening price of that bar, right? So you're going to get body sizes of different lengths. And also, let's see, I found last night a good, let's see, this is, I found last night a good spot where the closing price really kind of gapped as well. And, oh, here we go. Here's a good example. All right, so we have the closing price right here at like 0.66, and the next bar, you can see it's just 1 tick wide, and actually, no, that's a 2-tick jump. Let's see. There's probably some better examples here somewhere, but I know sometimes the closing price will kind of gap more than 2 ticks. Right, so on this bar type, I have the closing price offset set to 2 ticks, and then I have the reversal set to 24 ticks. Let's see if we can find a good example of that gap in price. Usually these after hours are pretty good at doing that. And all right, just give me a moment while I scan through here. I thought I had found something last night. Well, in any case, it will show from one bar to the next bar. If there was no activity, within the 2-tick offset that I've specified. So if the incoming price jumps 3 ticks or 4 ticks, the next bar will reflect that true price. So therefore, there's no like phantom bars generated in between. Some kind of issue. Well, it's not necessarily an issue, but these specialized, these kind of like median Renko bars is kind of a generic name. Sometimes they build phantom bars when price reverses. So I know that there's one bar type out there that definitely generates phantom bars. Essentially, it's a bar that's just created in order to get from the reversal price to the next incoming price. So sometimes 2 or 3 phantom bars get generated, and Jeremy's actually discovered that there is an internal issue with NinjaTrader, and sometimes a NinjaTrader will submit multiple orders out to the market when these phantom bars are generated when using those bar types in a strategy. And Jeremy believes he's managed to compensate for that in the next revision, next updates that we hope to get out to you guys soon. Let's see. Well, I'm not really seeing any obvious significant gaps in the closing price. However, since I wrote this bar type, I can tell you that if for some reason price gaps 4 ticks, your next bar will essentially the opening price would open 4 ticks down. So, and let me just kind of give you guys a comparison here. So you can see, these bar types don't match exactly, right? And that's because, it's because the closing prices may not match exactly, but they're very close. You can see this reversal bar happened on the same bar. This reversal bar, right? These reversal bars are matching up pretty good. Sometimes these reversal bars are off slightly by 1 bar, and that just depends on how the closing prices match up and the volatility of the market. And so here's a difference. So you can see I got an extra bar in the middle, and oh, that was because I actually have 4. Yeah, I have 4 down moving bars here, whereas the Unirenko only has 3 down moving bars. So you can see there's some subtle differences, but the majority, but for the majority, these bars are reversing essentially at the same point. So, I didn't show you how I had the Unirenko bar set up, but I have the closing price offset set to 2 ticks. The reversal is set to 24 ticks. Then I just set the opening offset to 2 ticks. So if I keep scanning down here, so we can see this reversal, these reversal bars happen on the same. So the point, of making this new Renko bar is to hopefully provide more accurate back testing results. So as some of you who use these, you've probably already discovered that almost any system you build with these Unirenko bars makes a winning system, right? And that's because the opening price has been manufactured. So whereas our Renko bar will give you a little more accuracy in the price You should still use 1 or 2 ticks of slippage depending on your instrument. You know, the oil probably has more slippage than other more commonly traded instruments. You know, it just depends on how much volume goes through on the instrument to determine, you know, which will change the amount of slippage that's needed. So, so for those of you who do have like the RJ bars or the Logic Renko bars, you know, there is a better way to make your back testing results more accurate, and that is to adjust your slippage. So if you don't know how much slippage to add to your back testing results, contact, you know, the company which, so if you are using an RJ bar, you know, contact RJ, you know, and ask them how much slippage is necessary, because, you know, they all differ depending on which bar type you're using. You know, so to get that formula, it'd be best, you know, to ask the company that you bought your Renko bar from, to ask them, you know, what's the formula to calculate the amount of slippage that you should at least be using at a minimum to get more accurate backtesting results. So I see there's a bunch of comments coming in here, so before I move on to the next bar type, let me kind of get through these, check out these questions or comments. Let's see. Gerard's saying, Zach, you said the closing price twice when referring to the Unirenko. Did you mean the open at first? You know, maybe I did. Hopefully I kind of corrected myself. So the difference between the bar type that I wrote and the bar type like this Unirenko or an RJ bar is that the closing price is based on the incoming tick. So it's not mathematically generated like it is on the other Renko bars. And excuse me, and also also the opening price of the bar is also based on incoming ticks. And so, you know, if you actually look at the internal code, the closing price and the opening price of these kind of median or smooth Renko bars, you know, they're all mathematically generated. And of course, it is incoming price that triggers the next bar being generated, but the closing and opening price is not actually based on the incoming price or incoming ticks. So hopefully that kind of clarifies it for you, Gerard. So Randy's saying, so the SI Renko only has 2 inputs. Can I assume that this is locked in it to always use offset and trend as same number? No. So no, nothing's locked. So I'll show you here. There's a, oh, all right, so you can see there's a closing offset which determines, you know, the closing offset determines how far price has to move before the next bar is generated. So as you can see, these bars are being generated every time price moves at least 2 ticks or more. And then the reversal in ticks just means from the last bar's closing price, how many ticks does price have to move before you get a reversal bar. So all these reversal bars are going to be at a minimum 24 ticks long from the previous bar's close. So not from the open. So remember, these bar types give you the true open. So in order to have our bar type kind of match the other bar types, the this reversal in ticks, this 24 ticks, is from the previous bar's close to the next reversal bar's close. So from this bar here, price had to reverse 24 ticks at a minimum. So and since I'm using the true opening price in our bars, I didn't need this tick offset, or this tick open offset parameter. So this parameter got eliminated since we're using the true opening price. And let's see, all right. Mohi, can we create bar types through BloodHound? No, sorry, Mohi. No, if you want to create your own bar type, you'll have to learn how to code in C#. And also, NinjaTrader does not offer any support in coding your own bar types. So you'd have to figure it out yourself, or have a programmer do it for you. So, all right, so Al is asking, please explain how a bar of this type is constructed. All right, so instead of using like time-based, so the way Renko bars are working, instead of using time-based, like as in a minute bar, 5-minute bar, essentially it uses time to decide when a new bar is being built. Well, the way a Renko bar works is it uses price movement. So every time price, so now that we're flipped to an uptrend, every time price moves 2 ticks or more, then a new bar will be generated. So now that, let's see, let's put this on the current here. All right, so we can see that this bar is being built right now. And so the previous bar that's closed, right, we can see it closed at 93.20. And so price has to move to .22 in order for this current bar that's building, in order for it to close, price has to move up to 0.22, up to 22 cents. And so it needs to move 2 more cents in the up direction before this bar would actually close and the next bar would be generated. But not only does price have to move up to 0.22 cents, but then say for some reason price kind of freezes at 22 cents. So if a bunch of orders keep coming in at exactly 22 cents, that bar's not going to close yet until we get an incoming tick that's different than 22 cents. So that way the volume will stay on the current bar that's being built until price changes from 22 cents to something else. So once price comes in at some other price, that will generate the opening price for the next bar when the next bar opens. So, all right, hopefully that kind of explains it for you, Al. And so Gerard's saying, Zach, have you looked at RJ Spectrum bars? Yes, I actually had his Spectrum bars for a little bit when we were working with John Novak at NextGen. All right, let me go through some of these other comments here. All right, so Robert's asking, will current users get the new SI Renko True? Yes, anybody can purchase this new bar type. So, and he's asking, will you be able to get an accurate backtest? Well, as accurate as possible. Backtesting is never exactly accurate. right? Because you're working on static price, and so since you're working on static price, you don't ever truly know where the real bid and ask was, but it's as accurate as you can get when working with historical static bars. So even though this does give you a more accurate opening price, at the same time, you still should apply a little bit of slippage depending on the volatility of the instrument. And I guess one way you can determine kind of what the volatility of the instrument is you can bring up your DOM, the NinjaTrader DOM, and just kind of look at the spread between the bid and the ask. Just keep an eye on that for a while. Or maybe you can talk to some more experienced traders. So if you come across an experienced trader who has been trading oil, for the last 5 years, maybe you could find somebody like that on Big Mike's and ask them what they kind of get their gut feeling is, what the average spread is for oil. So, those are just things to help you kind of get as close to as close and as accurate to real live trading as possible. All right, so another Al here. So we have an LR and an LT in the room. So LR is asking, if you get time today, can you tell me if BloodHound stripes, let's see, if BloodHound stripes from a 5-minute chart, CCI crosses 0, show up on a 10 Renko chart. All right, so Al, I just covered that issue in working with 2 different charts, and the video just was posted up on YouTube earlier this week. So Al, I can show you. Actually, I have it right here. Let me bring it over. And where did it go? Oh. Okay, I'm trying to bring over a separate Chrome window here to show you. So Al, if you go over to our YouTube channel, you'll see this video right here, BloodHound preventing a trend fake out and using a lower time frame. The title is awful long here. So, and here we go, using a lower time frame chart. So Al, this will kind of show you, so it is possible, but at the end, so the second half of this video will kind of explain the issues that you will encounter when trying to get signals off of a lower time frame. So since you're working with a 5-minute and a 10 Renko, depending on the instrument, the 10 Renko could become a lower time frame. In other words, bars are generated quicker on the Renko than they are on the 5-minute. And so this video will kind of explain the issues that you'll come across. All right, let me just get this off to the side here. All right, Patty, are these available to us now? No, not yet. So Jeremy needs to license them first. And he's been away helping family out this week. So hopefully in a week or 2, Jeremy will get these licensed, and we'll let you know when they're available. And also we'll have to modify our website to for these. And let's see, Robert's asking, what about optimization? Robert, I'm sorry, could you kind of explain? I don't remember your original question exactly? So could you kind of explain what you're wanting to optimize? And I'll get back to your question. All right, Tony. Tony's saying, I am new to Renko bars. Could you just summarize on the difference between a Renko bar versus a typical range bar? Let's see. So a Renko bar will not build a new bar until price either moved up 2 ticks, or in this case, if price reverses 24 ticks, whatever I specify. So a range bar simply just builds a new bar whenever price has moved that range amount. So if you create a 5-tick range bar, prices has to move 5 ticks from the high to the low, and then a new bar is generated. It doesn't matter where on the chart, at what price level. It doesn't matter what price level that 5-tick range was created at, just as long as you get price moving up and down from the high to the low of 5 ticks for a 5-tick range bar. Then a new bar is generated. So a Renko bar requires price to either move down a certain amount from the previous bar. So you have to look at the previous bar's close. So let me just kind of mark the close right here. So from this diamond, from the price of this diamond, price has to move down another 2 ticks for a new bar to be generated, or price has to reverse 24 ticks, or however I want my price to move. I can change those values. So that's kind of a quick difference. And all right, so we have the other Al here, Al T. How do we get the bar type if we want to check it out? I'll let you guys know. So Jeremy's going to have to license them first. So we'll have them available up on our website. Also, what slot does it occupy? All right, so Al is definitely probably a programmer, knows a little bit about building his bar types. And yeah, it's a good point, Al. I'll put that up on the website too, but if I remember correctly, the Renko, I believe, occupies custom 8 slot. And let's see, if Big Mike will let me, I will add that to the wiki to Big Mike's Trading's wiki. So I started a wiki page to track all of the slots that are being used, because there are so many bar types being created and put up on Big Mike's, and there's commercial ones, and there's NinjaTrader only has so many slots available for custom bar types. So I created a wiki page up on Big Mike's to help track all these slots and which bar types are using which slots, and I will try and have ours added up there as well. And the other bar type here, this 3-line break, uses custom 7. So, and all right, let's see. Mohi has a question. Can I create an order through BloodHound which says buy when bar's color turns green and sell when bar color turns red, and bar color can change based on my conditions and rules? So Mohi, one thing that NinjaTrader doesn't have the ability is to pass color from one indicator to another indicator. That maybe in version 8 they might have that capability. So right now, so what that means is that BloodHound doesn't have a way to know what the color is of some other indicator, or the color, well, let's see, yeah, if your bar types are being changed color, then that would be an indicator doing that. And so BloodHound doesn't have the ability to detect colors because, quite frankly, that just was not written into NinjaTrader's capabilities. So unfortunately, no. However, if if you know the conditions that change the bar color, then you could just build those conditions in BloodHound and get the same thing. So, for example, the let's see, the was it the Ikanashi? I may not be saying that correctly, or is it? Yeah, I think it's some kind of Japanese type of trading system that uses like 4 different moving averages. A bunch of the moving averages are delayed, and there's a third-party vendor that will color the bar types based on where price is in relationship to those systems. Yeah, thank you, Tony. So it's the Ichimoku. I believe I'm pronouncing that correct. The Ichimoku system. And so there's an indicator out there that will color your bar types based on where price is in relationship to the Ichimoku system. And so I worked with the customer, and basically he knew how, he found out, what the conditions were that changed the bar from red to green. And so he was able to back engineer it and build those systems into BloodHound. And he got BloodHound to mark exactly when the candles were green, BloodHound would give a green long condition. And when the candles turn red, BloodHound would give a red short condition. So, Mohi, if you can figure out what the conditions are that changes the bar type or the bar color, then most likely you could probably build that into BloodHound. All right, Randy. I'm not sure what Randy's saying. It depends on what slots are already in use. So I think, yeah, Randy's commenting on these on these custom bar types. So let's see. Robert's asking, will there be a cost to ultimate users for? Yes, these bar types are a separate product, so this has nothing to do with BloodHound. These are bar types. So BloodHound is an indicator, but these are bar types. So yes, there will be a cost to license these. Just remember, we can't put everything into BloodHound. I know you guys will love it, but all right, let's see. Let's move on to, all right, LT. The slot issue is that you can load a third-party bar type, and it would replace yes. Yeah, so the reason why Al was asking what slot these bar types are in is, as I'd mentioned earlier, there's only so many quote slots for custom bar types, and it's definitely possible that one bar type could overwrite another bar type. So that is possible, and that's why I created that wiki page up on Big Mike to try and track it, so that we could all know which bar types are going to stomp on top of each other. Let's see, it looks like Bob has a comment for, it's an FYI for us. So Big Mike has a period type indicator that you can put in a chart window and open the tools output window to show the bar types in your Ninja install. Oh, neat. So it looks like somebody made a custom code that you can load into Ninja as an indicator, and when you open it up, it'll show you all the bar types that you have installed on your system, and hopefully it will identify what slot that custom bar type is taken up. And so Randy's just making another comment regarding the slots, the available slots in NinjaTrader. So Randy's saying at present, I believe Ninja 7 has custom 0 through custom 9. Yes, I believe that's true, Randy. And there's also there's custom 0 through 9, and there's another name. So there's approximately like 16 to 18 slots. So there's the custom slot, and there's another name as well. I think it's called final. So I think there's final 0 through final 9, or maybe final 7 as well. So, and Bob confirmed, yeah, so the other name is final. So, so there's approximately 16 slots available. Let's see, Bob is saying, is it possible to code the bar type custom number as an input configuration? No, it's not. That has to be defined ahead of time before the bar type's even loaded into memory, unfortunately. However, if we discover that there's a very popular bar type out there that's using the same slot as ours, then I'll gladly go ahead and modify what slot we're using up, so that way we're not stomping on another popular bar type that's out there. All right, so it sounds like we got quite a number of guys who are programmers, or at least have a little experience in programming. All right. And all right, so Adam is asking, can you go over an exit strategy that would trial? That would trial. I'm not sure what you mean. An exit strategy that would trial using, say, ATR. So that would. So you want an exit strategy that would use an ATR. Well, Adam, if you can kind of explain how you would want to use the ATR, yeah, if I have enough time, hopefully I'll get back to it. And getting through all these comments and questions kind of took a little longer than I was expecting. You guys are pretty inquisitive, so all right, let me kind of clean up. All right, there, I kind of cleaned up my questions. So let me just go over this real quick. The other bar type is a 3-line break bar type. So here's Ninja's line break, right, and it's coded exactly how the original author created the bar type, right? So there's no wicks, and you can see the opening price always matches the previous closing price. So it creates a very clean looking chart. However, and this chart was designed to be for daily use. It was never designed to be an intraday bar type. However, it's been being used as an intraday bar type. So if you want to use it intraday and you want to back test it, obviously you need to know what the wicks are, right? You need to know what the true low of the bar would be and what the true high of the bar would be in order to back test it if you're using stops. So once again, I created a line break bar that has wicks on it, but it also has the true opening price. So like for example, you can see on this reversal bar here, right, this opening price of the bar matched the previous opening price of the bar. So if you're back testing it, right, it modified the opening price. And so that's not good when you're back testing. And you can see down here, so let me mark this. Right, so we're talking about that opening price versus this opening price. Right, so you can see this reversal bar is using the true opening price before it reversed. So, and here's another good example. So we can see on both of these bars the opening price actually match. So they're using the true incoming tick, you know, whereas on the correct way to generate a line break, you know, the open of the bar always matches the previous bar's close, or if it's a reversal bar, the open matches the previous bar's open. So there's, you know, there's never any gaps in the I guess in NinjaTrader's line break bar, or you know, kind of the correct way. Whereas if you're looking at the true opening price, you know, sometimes there could be some gaps in price. All right, so I don't really want to spend much more time on that. I kind of wanted to get to today's lesson. I was hoping this would go a little quicker. So let me kind of jump into today's lesson. And I'm going to switch workspaces here. And hopefully you guys had a chance to kind of read some of the examples here. So these are questions that came in from Tony. So if you guys have questions that you would like me to demo on Friday's workshops, that's what Friday's workshops are really for, is to help demo your guys' questions. So please send them in. And I just ask that you don't send them in on Friday morning, because typically I don't have time to go through questions on Friday morning. Let's see, and we just kind of take a look at some quick comments here. Yeah, so I guess Tony's kind of proud of himself. So I almost literally cut and paste Tony's questions to me just like this. And yes, thank you, Tony. It did save me a lot of time. I did kind of change a couple of keywords, you know, like I put in sloping. I took out the word moving and put in sloping, since that's really sloping applies to what solver to use. So I did kind of change some keywords. So it pertains a little more to BloodHound terminology. So, but yeah, you know, posing your questions in a nice clean format like that really helps me out. And I appreciate that, Tony. And all right, so Al, let me read Al's here. So Al's making a comment here. It looks like, given the idiosyncrasies of various bar types, I believe the best way to test a strategy is either with market replay or in real time. Yes, definitely. The final testing of your system should definitely be on market replay, and definitely you should test it forward in real markets. So, you know, back testing on historical static charts like this is just to kind of determine whether your system is worth pursuing any further. Oh, all right, good comment, Al. All right, so the first example here. is, all right, if my 55 moving average is sloping down while my 11 moving average is sloping up to cross it, I would like to detect this occurrence. And so I'm going to, these questions are, I don't think I've ever addressed these questions before, so I found them to be, I think, good to have on this Friday's class. So I believe that Tony is trying to kind of detect a crossover before it actually occurs. And pretty soon, well, eventually, hopefully this summer, or hopefully this summer, we're going to modify the crossover solver to actually try and detect a crossover just before it occurs. So it actually might require a new solver to do that, but nonetheless, yeah, we'd like to have BloodHound, I guess an easy way to kind of detect when a crossover is about to occur just prior to. All right, so what I have on here is the red moving average is the 55, and the white line is the 11 period moving average. So what we're interested in is in this example, so when the moving average is sloping down, so we could look at this right here. We'll look at this spot. So our moving average is sloping down just ever so slightly. And, oh, actually, I got this backwards, but the 11 moving average needs to be sloping up. So let me find where that is actually happening. So I'm going to have to find a spot on the chart that really whipsaws pretty quickly here. And let's see. I know I found that somewhere on the chart earlier. And it looks like this technically, yeah. All right, so technically this works right here. So right here in this crossover. All right, let's get going on building this. So let me add BloodHound to the chart. And let's see, yeah, that's off. Okay, great. And all right, I'm gonna change the color from green to, I'll put lime on there. Makes the racing stripes a little brighter when I do that. All right, so we have BloodHound on our chart now. So next, let me assign a name to the file. And I'll just grab, let's see, there we go. Grab that one. And all right, so let's build a couple of quick solvers. So we're needing to make sure that the moving averages are sloping in opposite directions. And let's see, so we need to kind of determine which slope solver we want to use with its default output settings, and which slope solver we want to reverse the outputs. And so I'm going to use the shorter period moving average to set up. I'm going to use the shorter period moving average and keep the output of the solver in its default state. So let me kind of put this on here and explain it a little bit later. All right, so this is an 11, and let's see, I think I used an HMA. So we have an 11 HMA. And right, simple enough. When the moving average is sloping up, we have a long confidence, and when the moving average is sloping down, we have a short confidence. All right, so that's the default output settings here. All right, so our default output setting is when in direction, so the output matches the direction or matches the slope of the line. So in direction means the solver's output matches the slope of the line. So when the line's sloping down, our output is to the short side. All right, so next, let's see, add another slope solver on there. And this is going to be to a 55 EMA. Oops. 55. All right, we'll change this over to an EMA. All right, change the period. Now I'm going to turn the 11 HMA slope solver off. So now we're only looking at the EMA 55, and this is the one that I need to reverse the outputs. So in other words, when the EMA is sloping down, we actually want, so in this case right here, inside of our area of interest, right, we can see we have 3 bars where the EMA is sloping down. However, we want a long output from this solver so that it matches the other slope solver. Right, so the slope solver for the 11 moving average, it's sloping up. So we want to match this long output on the 55 EMA solver. So we need to reverse the outputs. So what we'll do is we'll turn the in direction output off by setting it to 0, turns it off. And now we want to use the against direction. So I'll set this to 1. And there we go. So now we can see when the EMA 55 is sloping down, we reversed the output. So we're getting a long output. Right? And of course, when it's sloping up, now we're getting a short output. So now when I turn both of these on, we can see when the slopes of our moving averages are in opposite to each other. And so now we can see when we have this crossover, we do actually get a long signal out. So this is kind of what we're looking for. All right, so that's the first part of the question. And you can kind of, as you read into this question, it kind of looks like we're wanting to detect the crossover before it occurs. And the second question here, example 1A, explicitly asks that question. So when example 1 happens, I want to compare the closing price with the interception point to know how far the price is. So for example, if the price difference is less than 10 ticks, I would like to trigger a signal. So there's a secondary condition here. So if the price difference is less than 10 ticks, so I'm going to assume, let's see, that the 10 tick difference, so Tony didn't specify which moving average. So let's just assume to the longer moving average, because this 11 period moving average, basically hugs price very closely. So the only time price really can get away more than 10 ticks from a moving average would be the longer period moving average. So we'll check and make sure that price is within 10 ticks of the 55 EMA. And so to do that, we're going to be comparing the closing price to the 55 EMA. So I'll use a comparison solver here, and I'll name this the closing price to the 55 EMA. There. So I'm going to put the closing price in here. So here's a shortcut. I can use this closing price, or I could use the indicator that comes with BloodHound. So let me go down to SI, or I could use Chameleon to get the closing price. So if I use Chameleon down here, I'll just go down here and select the closing to get the closing price. And then indicator B section needs to be switched to the EMA 55. So let me turn off the other solvers. And so next, so we're looking for a 10 tick difference. So let's, in this case, we want price to be within 10 ticks. So 10 ticks or closer. So in this case, I'm going to use the small amount of 10 ticks. And let me turn this one off. And so you can see that sometimes these descriptions don't update themselves when you change the amount here. So if they don't update, so you can see they both say 0 ticks and 0 ticks. So what I can do is just click on another solver and come back to it. And now I can see that, right, this 10 tick updated itself. So, and I guess this kind of is good practice, good practice here. I'm going to set both of them to 10 ticks. And so I'm not looking for when A, remember A is the closing price here, and B is the EMA 55. So I'm not looking when the closing price is greater than the EMA 55 by 10 ticks. I'm looking for when the closing price is within the 10 tick range. So I want to use this neutral output setting. So I'm going to set this to 0, set this to 1, and the short outputs, I also need to set those to 0 and set this neutral to 1. So now as I look at this, 10 ticks looks kind of wide on the oil, but so here you can see as soon as the closing price is more than 10 ticks away from the red line, right, there's no output. So let me change this to something I guess a little more that fits our example a little better. So I'll modify it to 5 ticks. There. That kind of narrows things down a little bit. And we can see that even in this area of interest, the closing price is still within 5 ticks. All right, so now if I turn all of these solvers on, we can see when all 3 conditions are true. All right, so we can see the moving average, or say the 55 EMA is sloping down, our 11 moving average is up, and then price came within 5 ticks. So you can see that you don't have to put this on the logic board, but most likely this is going to work with other solvers, other components. So to put this on the logic board, let me drop the solvers on the board here. So with existing nodes, go down to the existing nodes. I'm going to drop all of them on here and then spread them out. All right, so example 1. So example 1 here, to build example 1 would require an AND node. Let me move my chart over. So there's example 1. It just requires an AND node. And so we can see when the moving averages are sloping in opposite directions. And then to create example 1A, I could drop down another AND node, connect this in, and so to make sure that there is that their price is at least within 5 ticks of our larger moving average 55, I can AND that in. So since this comparison is a requirement, that would need an AND node, and there we go. You can see the AND nodes kind of clean up the output a little bit. When you have 2 AND nodes connected together like this, you really don't need to. If I connected this in, essentially, when you link AND nodes together, you can just put them all into the same AND node like this, and you get the same results. Okay, so I see Tony's clarifying. All right, so when Tony says the interception point, I guess he literally means the interception point. All right, so Tony, I need to know what indicator you're using that calculates this interception point, right? So this interception point would be a mathematical calculation. So I would need the indicator that would calculate the interception point, right? So there's no, remember, BloodHound doesn't calculate mathematical results. So BloodHound's not a mathematical indicator. So BloodHound calculates all of these different various ways of comparisons. Right, so all of these solvers essentially are kind of like different forms of comparing things together. So, and none of these create or have mathematical capabilities built into them. So you would need an indicator that would calculate that mathematical point and then hold on to it in a plot. So just like, right, I mean, that's what a moving average is doing, is a moving average is calculating, it's a mathematical formula that's calculating the mathematical average of where price has been, right? So this price here is the mathematical average of where price has been within the last 55 bars. So you'd need, another indicator to calculate the mathematical interception point. So, all right, and so another part of Tony's comment is the thinking is that if the price has already broken away, I am late to the trade. Okay, so if you want to make sure, so it kind of looks like what Tony's wanting to make sure is that price has not taken off yet. So it kind of looks like Tony's wanting to make sure that price is below this interception point. So what we can do is, since we don't actually have that interception point, we can at least make sure that price is below the EMA 55. So let's modify, so we'll modify this comparison solver here to make sure that price is below the EMA 55 for a long trade. So that's just a matter of modifying the outputs here. I'll set both of these to 0. All right, so what we're looking for is when the price, so A, so when A is less than B, that would be A is below B, then we want a long output. All right, so when A, here we go, so when A is less than B by 5 ticks, so we could also say when A is less, when the closing price is less than EMA 55 by 5 ticks or more, so even if we're way below it, that's still good for a long. So let's put a 1 in there. And so here we can see when the closing price is below the red line by 5 ticks or more. And let me kind of constrain this a little more, kind of narrow things. Let's see. Oh, actually, let's create more signals. That's right. Let's see. Well, so I can see here that in this situation, closing price is within 5 ticks. So we wouldn't actually get a signal here. But we'll build this out anyways. And so let me put the shorts in here. So for the shorts, there we go. So when the closing price is above the EMA 55 by 5 ticks or more, there's our, and I don't think this would ever work because the 11 moving average is always going to be trailing behind closing price. Let's take a look and see if, oh, all right, so there are some examples. Yeah, so technically all these qualify. So right here, right, the white line is sloping up, the red line is sloping down, and price is 5 ticks away, or 5 ticks, at least 5 ticks below our EMA 55, which is the red line here. So there you go, there's all kinds of conditions being marked. All right, let's see. Let me kind of look at some of these questions here. Yeah, all right, let's see. I think Tony has some more comments here. Let's see. So it doesn't look like Tony has an indicator to calculate the interception point. So, all right. Yeah, Tony, I didn't think you had an indicator, but it would be necessary to have an indicator that would essentially mark that interception price for you in order for BloodHound to make that in order for BloodHound to compare the closing price to the interception point. So Tony really would want the EMA 55 price to be replaced with the interception point price. But so this is how you would build that solver, Tony. You just had to find or get the indicator written for you that would calculate that interception point. All right. Yeah, Randy's going to suggest here, how about if using the 1155 moving average crossover solver and the closing price is within 10 ticks of the HMA 55. So, yeah, so that's a possibility, Randy. So, and also Randy's suggesting, of course, checking the bar direction to make sure the bar direction's in the right direction. So, yeah, so those are possibilities for now, what Randy's suggesting. I think Tony's real point, though, is he's trying to figure out what the future price movement will be. So I think the gist of this is to detect a crossover before it actually occurs. So, this is another solver that we have on the drawing board to detect a crossover, 1 bar, maybe 2 bars before it actually happens. So obviously, if you try and detect a crossover too many bars before it happens, you would get a lot of false signals. All right, so let me move on to example 2. All right, so if my 27 moving average is sloping up in a upper elevation, and so Tony, I actually had to change this. Tony had put a lower elevation, but technically if this is lower, it would not be possible. So the slower moving average would have to be in an upper elevation, while the 11 moving average is so let me back up here. So the slower moving average is sloping up, and it's in the upper location, and the 11 moving average would also be sloping up to cross it. So so how would you detect that? All right, so let's build that, and let's kind of find where that would occur. I think that's going to be easier to locate. I'm going to try and find an example where the slopes are pretty obvious. And maybe this 55 EMA seems to be moving a little too quickly. So, Well, I think I can use this spot as an example. So I can see the EMA did start to slope down at least 1 bar before the faster period moving average, the white line, crossed it. So, all right, let's, so I'm going to make another logic template, and I'll just make some new solvers. So I'm going to drop down 2 slope solvers. All right, so we have the 11 HMA. All right, and this other one is going to be 55 EMA. Let's check these out. All right, so the 11 AMA, right? So we got a long output, sloping up, short output when sloping down. So both of these are using the, the default output settings, right? So we can see as soon as the 55 EMA starts sloping down, right? Short output, sloping up, long output. Okay, and the next step is to join these together with an AND node, because we need them both sloping in the same direction at the same time, just like so. And let me bring this up again. Okay, and so the next condition is we want the slower period, and oh, that's right, we switched over to a 27. So let me change, that's right. I put different moving averages on here to create a better example. So let me change that to a plot that's a little harder to see. So 27, let's see, and let's see. All right, I thought I had a 27 on here, but I don't, so let me add one. All right, we'll take a look at how this looks. Well, I don't see anything really obvious. The 27 EMA is still sloping down, so it'll work. It's just not really obvious on the chart here, but we'll work with it and see what we get. All right, so I'm going to switch this over to 27 EMA. All right, change the period here. And so okay, so we've taken care of making sure that both of the moving averages are sloping in the same direction. So this one is also sloping up. And the next step is to check to make sure that the slower moving average is above the faster moving average, at least for a long condition. So let's put a comparison solver on here and compare the two moving averages to each other. All right, so we are comparing, let's see, the 11 HMA, HMA to the 27 EMA. All right, plug the EMA in here. All right, so basically example one is for a long condition. So we want the slow moving average above, and let's see, so this is opposite. So when the slower. So when the faster moving average is above, we're getting a long output. So we want to reverse that, so that when the slower moving average, the red line, is above, the white line is when we want a long output. So we need to reverse this output here. And simple way to do that. All right, so we'll set this to 0, and I'll set this to 1. And you see that'll reverse the long output. And on the shorts, I'll set this to 0, set this to 1, and there we go. All right, so next step is we'll just add this into the AND node and see what we get. There we go. So we did get a short signal there. And we got a long signal here. So the short moving average was below, just about ready to cross. So in a way, this kind of setup right here is kind of detecting crossovers before they occur. And so we got a long signal here, and what happened was, let me stretch out the chart. All right, so we did get a long signal because both the red line and the white line were sloping up, but then what happened was the red line started sloping down, and therefore we lost it. And then the white line crossed above it before both moving averages started sloping up together. So that's kind of what happened in this area. All right, I'm going to try and get through these others here quickly. I'm running out of time. All right, example 3. Let's see. All right, so when example 1 is happening, I would also like to detect if my 16 moving average chart. Now I do notice that, Tony, you're saying chart has been sort of in a parallel with a 44 moving average line. So I notice you're saying chart, so I'm assuming you do literally mean chart, not just a 60 moving average on and a 44 moving average on the same chart, but I'm assuming that you have moving averages on different time period charts. And all right, so to further explain what he's saying is, so this means I want to look back for, say, 15 bars and make sure my bigger time frame, which I'm assuming is probably your 16 moving average chart, bigger time frame. Oh, I'm sorry, your 44. So this is what kind of confused me. You're saying chart here, but then you're saying 44 line here. So I'm not sure if you meant to say chart, but I think I'll build a condition that I think will answer your question here. Whether I get it exactly the same as how you wrote it won't matter. You can change the settings, but I'll build the condition for you. So let me back up and reread this. So this means I want to look back for, say, 15 bars to make sure my bigger time frame 44 moving average never intercepts with the 16 moving average. Yeah, so the gist of this is we want to make sure that two moving averages haven't crossed each other in 15 bars, for example. So let me, let's see, that one's turned off or diminished. Let me diminish this guy so it's a little harder to see. And all right, I'm going to make these two blue lines a little easier to see. Turn that one on. All right, so what we're going to check for is when to make sure these two blue lines have not crossed within 15 bars. So I'm going to grab the crossover. Actually, I'll just work on the logic board here. So let me create a new logic template, and I will drop a crossover down here. All right, and let me just I need to look, see what moving averages I'm looking for. So that's right, it's 16 and a 24 SMA. All right, so that makes this easy to build. So I'll change that to 16. Change this one to 44. So this kind of condition to me doesn't really have a long or short bias. It's just, it kind of seems like it's being used to detect kind of consolidation when there's no crossover, right? So when you have a consolidation, that doesn't tell you whether you should be going long or short. So I'm going to set the solver up so that it's non-directional. So it will give us a long and a short output at the same time. And to do this, I just simply need to let me adjust this so you can see it. So the normal output setting is we get an output that crosses in direction, right? So when the faster moving average crosses down, right, that's a downward crossover, and so we get a short confidence or short output. And then when the moving average crosses up, right, that's an upward crossing. So that's what crosses in direction means. And so we can reverse that by using the crosses against direction. So if I set this to 0, set this to 1, right, you can see these outputs are now been reversed. So when this cross up, it actually gave us a short output. And so to get both, I just need to put a 1 in both of these outputs. And now we see I get a long and a short output at the same time. All right. And you'll notice that when I do get a long and short, at the same time, I still see the racing stripe on the chart. And the way I did this Let me show you. The way you can see this racing stripe when there is a long and a short at the same time is you'll have to turn this off. So under signals, you see it says compare long and short confidence. So you just want to set that to false. And all right, so now the next step is we want to check to make sure there hasn't been any crossovers for 15 bars. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my look back to 15 bars. And let's see what happened here. Look back, crosses occur equals, and let me change that to 10. So oh, all right. Looks like I got into an issue here. Let me save this just in case. All right. I'm going to refresh this. All right, I'm still getting an error here. All right, so I'm going to restart NinjaTrader real quick. But first, let me just name this. So a 15 bar crossover, and let me set this to 10. Hopefully that'll eliminate that error. All right, save it. And let me just restart Ninja real quick. So essentially what I'm doing, right, is I'm setting the look back period on the crossover to 15 bars. And so that tells me when a crossover has occurred for 15 bars. And so what I'm going to do is actually reverse that. Well, let me check this out. All right, let's see how far I can go. Oh, it's not letting me go that far. Well, for some reason, it's not letting me go more than a 2-bar look back period. Well, I'll work with what I've got. All right, so essentially after our 2-bar look back period, so the 3rd bar, so there on the 3rd bar, we can see that there's no output, and that's telling us that there hasn't been a crossover for the last 2 bars. And I believe I can just invert it, and so there we go. So if there was a crossover within the last 2 bars, there's no output. So I think we'll have to have Jeremy look at the code on this when he gets back. So this might need to be a fix on this. All right, so let me just, I'm reading the example 3 here to make sure I got everything. All right, so Tony is wanting to see, so he's saying in the beginning when example 1 is happening. So Tony wants to combine this condition with example 1. Yeah, all right, so I think, so we can see that right here, that there hasn't been, you know, this whole period right here, there hasn't, every spot on the chart that hasn't been marked, right, there hasn't been a crossover occur. So we can simply join this with the other conditions with an AND node. So let me go back to, let's see, I think, here, let me, this is example 3. So let me call this example 3. Call this one example 2. And this one example 1. All right, so he wants to combine this crossover solver with example 1. So what I'll do is I'll copy example 1 and let's see. Well, instead of erasing example 3, I'll just call this example 3A. There. So essentially, this is example 1, and then to make it example 3A, I just need to include this crossover solver on here and also connect this in. So let me disconnect this. And I'll have to look on the chart and see if we have any signals just after a crossover. It's going to be literally after a, okay, here we go. So here's a crossover. Yeah, so here we go. There we have a crossover here, and also this short condition is true here. So now, if I connect this crossover solver in, there. So it removed the 2 signals on these 2 bars right here. Right, so it removed these 2 signals. So if I disconnect it, there we go, those 2 signals are back. All right, so it removed them. All right, so essentially that's example 3 and example 4. So also I would also want to know if the 60 moving average and the 44 moving average are converging or diverging, right? So when two things are converging, they're coming together, and when they're diverging, they're moving apart. And this, I had mentioned a couple of workshops back that this is actually going to become a new solver. We're going to create a new solver that can do converging and diverging. So I think when I explained this concept, I think I was using the BB-MACD indicator, right, which has Bollinger Bands on it. And so in order to determine when the Bollinger Bands are coming together, consolidating or squeezing together, that would require a new solver to determine this. So right now there is no way to detect converging or diverging when they're coming together. I guess, well, there is, but it would be a really sloppy and really limited way to doing it. So it'd be best just to wait for the solver to come out in order to do that. And so hopefully, once again, towards this into the summer, we'll have that out for you guys. So for now, there's really no good way of doing example 4. So I'm just going to take a pass on that and say wait for the solver to come out. And with that, I need to wrap it up. So it's 20 after, and you know, I'm sorry I didn't get to some of your guys' questions. Let's see. So Adam, for next week, or if you need an answer sooner, could you send in a support question for next Friday's workshop, and I'll address it then, and that way you can provide me with some more detail of how you want to use the ATR as an exit. And let's see, Ted says, I have a BloodHound strategy that I would like to run through the Ninja Optimizer. How can I set up like crossover parameter that can be optimized? So Ted, right now, the way the optimizer works, there is no way to optimize your settings in BloodHound. So that's another thing that's on the drawing board that we would like to get to. However, that is going to require quite a significant update to BloodHound to get that working. So we're working on it. Well, we're not working on it now, but we will be working on it once we get a few other things taken care of first with BloodHound. Okay, so let me just kind of look through some of these other questions here. Let's see. So Tony's wanting to know, is there a way to hold a global variable? So I'm not sure what you mean by global variable, but you know, in the technical programming sense, I know what you mean by a global variable. So he's saying, is there a way to hold a global variable so that I can do something like keeping a result or using a counter? So not, if I understand what you're saying, not within BloodHound. So once again, BloodHound doesn't hold on to indicator values. BloodHound can hold on to its own values by using the lookback. So you can use the lookback function node, and then BloodHound, this gives BloodHound kind of a way to hold on to the output of any of its nodes. But if you're wanting to hold on to a value from an indicator, hold on to the actual value, I guess that would require another indicator to hold on to that value. Kind of like, much like the swing indicator, NinjaTrader swing indicator kind of holds on to the swing point for you, you know, until that swing point's broken. So we'd need an indicator to hold on to another indicator value. And all right, just kind of reading through these comments here real quick. So Bart, I think I asked your question. He's asking, when do we think we'll get to the new solver? So all I can say is hopefully by the end of the summer, maybe fall. All right. So Gerard's wanting to know, is there any way to let you guys know what's on the drawing board? Let's see. Yeah, I'll try to make a mental note, I guess, to kind of make a list for you guys. Or I guess better yet, we do have a suggestion forum. So on our Zendesk website, which is sharkindicators.zendesk.com, there's a support section in there where we take people's suggestions. However, that site doesn't seem to get used very much. Most people just kind of send them in by email. So yeah, it would be kind of cool to have a place for you guys to know what upcoming updates are coming along. So I'll see if I can get to that. Keeping it updated, well, that's another matter. So, all right, well, guys, I really have to wrap this up. So thank you, and you guys have a great weekend. And